the Four Noble Truths, and the Eightfold Path. So the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path initiates, triggers spiritual awakening. There you go. That sounds like a big old word. What does it mean, awakening? Do you think I'm asleep? Believe it or not, most of us are spiritually asleep, and I will cover that tonight. So, what are the Four Noble Truths? Alrighty. There is suffering in life. What are the origins of this suffering? This suffering can end, and the way to end it. Now, before we continue, have you ever played telephone where you whisper something to one guy over here? By the time you reach the end of the room, it's like completely distorted. I remember one time, I was talking to my grandfather on the table, right? On the dinner table. And I said, Grandpa, so-and-so is sick, right? Grandma is sitting two persons down. Like my grandfather's here, somebody's there, my grandma's here. I kid you not. Not even 3 minutes. I heard my grandma says, who died? I go, what the heck? Could you imagine what the teacher taught 2,500 years ago? And now, could have been distorted? That's why my teacher said, see, here's exactly the problem. Most people that learn Buddhism, at least when I learned it, it says all life is suffering. In other words, you're screwed, man. That's it. End of story. He says, no. It is not that all life is suffering. There is the existence of suffering in life. Oh. You see the difference? It's not like everything is suffering. It's like there is this suffering, and there's causes that cause that suffering, and good thing this thing can end. How do you do it? So the Lord Buddha is oftentimes called the great physician. So the easiest way to understand this, Buddhism 101. Suffering is like the sickness or the ailment. That's noble truth number one. Number two, what causes it? You go to a doctor, you tell them you have this problem, they're going to say, okay, what are the symptoms? What are the things that possibly caused it? Is it bad diet? Did you fall? Did somebody smack you? Try to find out the origin so that they can figure out how to cure it. So suffering is the ailment. What are the causes of this suffering? What is the cause of that ailment? And the doctor says, okay, we can fix it. And the last one is, how do you fix it? The medicine. That's the Eightfold Path. Okay? That's the overview. Now, we'll just go through this quickly. I know I'm talking a million miles per hour. That's because I want to make sure I pack this all in. So I want to make sure that, especially if you're new, if you pick up something, one nugget, one gem of wisdom that could spark your spiritual path, I'm grateful to be here. Okay? Here we go. Again, is life suffering? Everything suffering, or there is suffering in life? That's a mistranslation. That's the thing that partially distorted. So think about it. If all life is suffering, well, why bother teaching what caused it and curing it? Because you're dead anyway. So it's not because all life is suffering. There is suffering in life. Whew. Now, let's talk about the origin. What causes it? There are many of them. We'll just talk about two because these are the most obvious ones. And it's something we can do something about. All right, here we go. First cause of suffering is enslavement by unwholesome desires. Okay. It's not desire by itself that's the problem. But what? Unregulated, unwholesome, excessive desire. Let's talk about it because I remember when I first studied Buddhism, it's like, yeah, all desires is bad, man. You should not want anything. And I remember I was talking to my teacher, says, so the desire to be a good person is bad? Of course not, Master. And the desire to love God and serve God, is that bad? No. So you just said all desire is bad. Well, that's what I read. Then he explained. You see, most of the time you study Buddhism, they say, okay, the cause of all suffering is attachment. You see, attachment is not the problem. It is the inability to detach that causes excessive desire, or what you call obsession, compulsion, or addiction. Simple example. Okay, let's say I want to drink some water. Because my body's thirsty, right? Quote unquote, I desire to drink water. I'm done. What would you do? Put it down. You're not going to go, Right? So the secret is not attachment. The way my teacher explained it is as simple as this. And if you get this part, which when he said it, it blew my mind. Watch. Everything in life is like this. Attach. Oh, done. Deattach. Attach, deattach. Attach, deattach. So life is a series of attachment, deattachment. Holding, experiencing, releasing. You enjoy that movie. Oh man, that was a great movie. You come out, yeah, you talk about it, and then, oh yeah, okay, I have to go home, get dinner now. That's that. You don't sit there and talk about it till the next morning, the next month, the next year. You get the idea? So the problem is not attachment, it's the inability to detach. So when a person cannot deattach or detach, then they're clinging and they're basically glued to that thing, emotionally, mentally. That's what you call compulsion, obsession, or addiction. See the difference? Huge difference. So it's not like you should not get involved, you should not experience life. No, live life to the fullest, enjoy the heck out of it, but know that everything is subject to change, which is what we're going to talk about. And if it doesn't serve you anymore, let go. That's it. Attach, deattach, and move on. Now, the second cause of suffering. Unrealistic expectation that favorable situations will not change. All of us have been there, right? The economy, it's a bullish market. It's going to go on forever. Yeah, right. You talk to any economist, there's cycles, which is the secret. So that's why if you study Buddhism, they always say, yeah, nothing is permanent, which is true. Not completely everything, but nothing. You go, wait, you're playing with words. Listen to what I just said. Nothing is not permanent. Nothing is permanent. Watch. Or in one word, impermanence. There is impermanence in the world because life is governed by 3 C's. 3 laws. The first one is C, law of change. You heard this already. Everything is subject to change, right? Then there's cycles. Right now, it's about 7 in California. In a few hours, it's going to be 9. In a few hours, it's going to be 12. And tomorrow morning, it's going to be 7 in the morning. Then this time tomorrow, it's going to be 7. Cycles. There's a time where the bank opens, the bank closes. Your child is first an infant, then becomes a toddler, then becomes something. I know my kids are grown already. Teenager and adult and this and that. There's cycles, right? So there's always change. There's always cycles. Those 2 alone, there's no way things could be permanent. Then you add the third one, law of consequence, which is what's called the law of karma. Now, before we touch that one, let's talk about the law of cycles. There are different seasons, astrological seasons, financial cycles, right? And if you remember, what the guy's name with a nice quote, Joseph. Remember? The Pharaoh has these dreams of 7 fat cows and skinny cows on a really strong diet. And then he had this dream over and nobody could interpret. And there's the cook who got jailed and somehow talking to Joseph, and Joseph was able to interpret his dream. And the word got to the Pharaoh, hey, there's this dude could interpret dreams. And when he interpreted, he said, yeah, 7 fat cows, 7 skinny cows. That means 7 years of abundance, good harvest, and 7 years of famine. So I would recommend you store your wheat in containers and so on and so on. Silos. And that's what saved him. That's why he became a government official, etc., etc. There's cycles. Now, so if you put the whole thing together, watch. You have the law of change. Everything's subject to change. There's always changes. And that changes manifests as cycles. And there's the law of consequence, or what you call the law of karma, meaning what? Law of cause and effect. At any given time, we are creating causes physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Now, multiply that by billions of people, plus invisible beings. How could anything be permanent? There's always something thrown into the mix, right? Now, most of you would go, Oh, great. We're screwed now. No. Wait. Here's the beautiful thing. Listen carefully. You forget everything else tonight. If you get this part, your life will be, let's just say, more in your control. All right. Think about it. Can you stop change? Nope. Can you stop cycles? Nope. Can you choose what you plant? Yeah. I want oranges, I plant orange seed. I want apples, I plant apple seeds. So in other words, based on what effect I want, I can decide what cause I initiate. There lies the beauty of the teaching. Listen and listen carefully. When I heard this, I go, wow, mind blown. Okay? So the way he explained it is something like this. If you look at this this diagram, all right. If you're in A, let's say life, a lot of people these days, because of the pandemic and whatever else, they're down in the dumps, right? And they go, oh man. Here's the good news. You're not going to stay there because there's a law of change and the law of cycles. That's why they're saying one of the benefits of being at the bottom, the only way is what? Up. Make sense? So law of change, law of cycles. You guys, yeah, what's taking so darn long? That's noble truth number 3. We'll get there. Now watch. So because of law of change and law of cycles, you're not going to stay at A. At some point you get to B. And things are doing well. Everything you touch turns to gold. Here's the problem. When people get there, they think it's going to stay that way. And so what happens? They don't save money. They don't use that opportunity to be kind to people, to the freedom to do their spiritual practice meditation. In other words, they go, oh, everything's great. So they enjoy it. They squander their wealth. They don't save. They don't. In other words, they're selfish. I'm not saying everybody, but that's a natural tendency for most people. And guess what? Then it changes it again. And before you know it, they're at the bottom. Okay, here we go again. And it takes another time, just like, will this ever end? Sounds familiar? Here's the best news. Watch. On the left, you will see what we just described. On the right is someone who understood the 3 C's. They know there will always be change, there'll always be cycles, but they can control the seeds they plant. So even if they're at A, if they're kind to people, they generate good karma by giving money to charity, being charitable, being kind, don't steal, all the good stuff that they do. The karma credits, guess what happens? Instead of the change that's always be there and the cycles being steep, it becomes like that. So it's less painful and it's quicker and less effort. So when they get to B, it takes shorter time, right? And getting there is less effort compared to not having good karma. When they got there, they're smart. They go, okay, well now everything's good. So I'm going to use this opportunity to save money. I'm going to give more money to charity. I'm going to take the time to meditate, be a better person, be spiritually connected, because I know this is not going to last forever. So sure enough, because of that, change and cycles, it's going to start turning. But you notice the angle. Number 1, to get to C, it's shorter and it's not like a plunge because of good karma. But nevertheless, you cannot stop change. You cannot stop cycles. Make sense? So it'll still get to D. But if you look at it, the way we explained it is, we showed it is, it doesn't dip as low. And when you get to D, well, you were very kind to people. When things are doing well, you need help, they're there for you. You save money when things are doing well. Well, when things are not doing as well, you have good habits and you have savings or investments. So even though you're down, it's nowhere as low. And you just repeat the same formula. Be a good person, be kind, be generous. And guess what? From D, going to E, well, the other ones are like, takes so long. This one's like a quick turn and you're up again. Do you get my point? Okay, here's another way to look at it. So in the first one, which most people do, they just let the universe take care of themselves. And whatever happens, happens. So suffering is suffering. Now, in your case, since you understood this, guess what happens? The movement is upwards. Any downturns, because you cannot stop change your cycles, is shorter, right? More abrupt faster moving upwards. So while somebody's going like this, yours is like, like that. So in the same 20 years or 30 years, people are still going like, you're like, get the idea? You didn't screw around with law of change or law of cycles. It's still there. But the only one that you strategize is using the law of karma. Because that's the only one you can control. You can control what you plant and control what you don't plant. Do you realize that? So you cannot stop change. You cannot stop cycles. But you can alter its trajectory and its speed, which in science they call velocity. I hope I'm saying that right. Make sense? Now, noble truth number 3. This suffering can end, but it doesn't say how long, right? Just say, okay, suffering can end. How long before it ends? It depends on our response. Now, some of you have heard of Viktor Frankl. His family was killed by the Nazis, and he was in the Nazi concentration camp. He came out, and people asked him, how did you survive it? That's what he said. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is an option. Or I know there's a lot of great teachers, including Tony Robbins, would say, pain happens, but suffering is still a choice. The question is why? Because suffering is your response to what happens. You cannot control what happens outside or what people do to you, but you can control what you respond to it. So that's why Dr. Viktor Frankl says between stimulus and response, it's a gap or a space. In that space, you get to choose what do you do with it. You can be choosing to be pissed off. You can say, okay, this is a lesson I need to learn. How do I make the most of it? And the way my teacher explained it is, when somebody insults you, response number 1 is like, oh yeah, you are also a piece of this and piece of that. And then after that, you keep telling every person you see, that guy is this, that guy is that. For the next 2-3 days, you do it. Another week, 2 weeks, a year. So what happens? You just drag that suffering for another year. Or you say, wait, maybe that person's having a bad day. Maybe, something bad happened to him. That's why he was a little nasty. Or maybe he's just going through difficult times. Anyway, forgive, forget, let go. Your suffering just ended. And you can have a great day. The same pain happened, but your response changed. Some people have a tendency to hold inventory of bad stuff. That's why they suffer. They create their own misery. They remember every mistake you've ever done. And what happens? They're always carrying it. Every person that's helped hurt them, they remember it. So the people they're pissed off with, what? Don't care and don't even know. Who's suffering? Get the idea? Forgive, forget, move on. All right. So, noble truth number 1 is there is suffering in life. Noble truth number 2 is what? What are the origins? Number 3, this could end, depending on your response to it, will determine how fast. And the last one, what's the cure? So, the Eightfold Path is the cure. That cure, if you look at the screen, maybe you need a little bigger. Right. Right viewpoint, right thoughts, words, speech, action, livelihood, spiritual effort, endeavor, awareness, and oneness. Now, you'll notice on this screen, we divide it into 2. Number 1 is right viewpoint, which is accurate perception. And right from number 2 to number 8 is called correct expression. Essentially, the way my teacher explained it is something like this. Everything is banking on number 1. You mess up number 1, you kiss the rest goodbye. So number 1 means seeing things clearly, perceiving what's going on properly, and that is done through careful observation and correctly interpreting what's going on. Once you interpret what's going on properly, then you will know what to think, what to say, how to act. What you think, what you say, and act put together over and over again is what you call lifestyle. And then from there, you know how to focus, like right endeavor, and how to be aware of your spiritual nature, and how to know that you're connected with all. In other words, you dive down into the world and you move upwards into the spiritual world. I'll cover that. Now, the most important part, I'm not going to go through the whole Eightfold Path because that will take probably at least 8 hours, which is what we did the last 7 days. No, a lot of you joined us. The most important part is this one. Who is the observer and what's being observed? If you move your body like this, what are you doing? I'm moving my body. What's being moved? My body. Who's moving it? I am. Feel a feeling, an emotion, whatever it is. Happiness, joy, anger, whatever that emotion is. What are you doing? I'm feeling the emotion. What's being felt? That emotion of joy, happiness, anger, whatever it is. Who created it? I did. I felt it. Same thing with a thought. Apple, car, house. I created that thought. Who's the thinker or the creator of the thought? I am. Now watch. Before you move your arm or move your body, did you exist already? Yeah, that's why I initiated the movement. Before I felt this good emotion or bad emotion, good thought or bad thought, before I felt that, did I exist? Yes. Okay, well, if that's the case, I could not be the body because I existed before it, before I moved it. I could not be these emotions I created because before I was pissed off, I was already around. Before I was happy, I was already around. Same thing with the thoughts. So who is this mover, feeler, and thinker? That's the spiritual self, the observer. Observing. Now, here's the secret. If you look at what happened with Viktor Frankl, right here, between stimulus and response is a space. That space is, to make it really practical, somebody says something nasty to you, there's that gap of time where you are observing, right? You're observing this person is insulting you. Or somebody said some loving words to you. There's that gap that you're observing, and then from there you respond. Who is the observer? I am. So if that person said something nasty to you, you still have that choice to say, oh yeah, or you can say, this person's really in bad shape. I should not retaliate. I should show kindness. Or somebody's very loving to you, you can say, I don't accept it, or yes, I'll reciprocate your love. That space is when the I gets an opportunity to observe what's going on and use the body, the emotions and thoughts as an instrument to respond to what's happening. And that response is what you call right thoughts. Like, okay, well, this person's going through a difficult time, so I understand it. I'll help him out. Right speech, what to say. And I'm not going to beat him up. Right action. Does that make sense? So right thoughts, right words, right action are dependent on what you perceive. That's why it's interesting. I always use this example. Some of you who are, let's just say your body's not so young anymore. You remember that many years ago, there's this TV show called Three's Company. And it's based on one theme. Wrong viewpoint. You notice that? I think that John Ritter, Suzanne Summers, I forgot the other one. Anyway, I remember somebody would say something or talking to someone, and one person would catch like 10% of it and make a conclusion. From there, the entire show is based on that wrong perception or wrong viewpoint. Remember that? How many of us actually do that in our lives? When the body is not doing well, if the body's sick, you think the world's going to end. But that's your body that you're using. When you're emotionally not doing well, because somebody did not give you the attention you need or whatever, you think the world's going to end. And so on and so on. In other words, we have a tendency to perceive the I as what's going on in the emotions, the body, and thoughts, when in reality, if you step back, I am using my body, my emotions, and my thoughts. So the combination of using right thoughts, right words, and right actions is what you call right lifestyle. Now, there's a few things I want to cover, and I don't want to take too much of your time. So when it comes to right speech, right thoughts, right action, the key is loving kindness and non-injury. So in that space, you get to choose. Okay, am I going to be nasty? I'm going to be kind. Am I going to be forgiving? Or I'm going to get even? So right thoughts means what? Having good and uplifting thoughts towards oneself and others, and discernment. I want to cover this part because it's one of the most profound teachings of the Buddha. My teacher calls it practicing intelligent evaluation. I'll just go through this quickly. Do not believe anything to be true. The key words are just because. In other words, that's all it is. Because legends say so, holy books say so, just because, confirms with tradition, or causes a fad or a sensation, something shiny. Okay? Keep going. Just because, I'll skip some of them. The most important one is, you see, the Buddha said, don't believe it just because I said it. If you ever come to Pranic Healing or Hatha or any of our classes, the second or third slide before we move on with the class would say, do not believe everything blindly, analyze the information, do the experiment, make your own conclusion. Your conclusion and the conclusion of the teacher or the facilitator do not always have to agree. That's why God gave you a brain. And that's why I remember when you study Buddhism, a lot of people say, man, this is so boring, no emotion. It's like everything thinking. It's not just thinking, it's clarity. Don't believe anything blindly. You know, what if somebody says, hey, if you take this, jump around on your head, chant this mantra, an alien will land on your crown, you'll be enlightened. You're going to go, who believes that cockamamie crap? Some people do. Because why? They do not what? Have right thoughts. They believe everything. I remember my teacher used to say, you know, some people, you heard the American saying, swallow hook, line, and sinker. You know, hook, the line, and the sinker below. Some people even swallow the fisherman. Don't believe anything blindly, especially at this time. You heard of conspiracy theories left and right. You have to think, does that make sense? Does that make sense? God gave us a brain. That's right thoughts. Now, the reason thoughts are important because they are the seeds. From how we think will determine what comes out of our mouth and our actions. So just quickly going through this, right speech. A lot of you know this already. Again, most likely 99% of what I'm sharing with you now, you already heard of. I'm just here to help you understand it deeper, remember it, and as you remember it, you will practice it and eventually master it. Right speech test. When somebody says something, or before you say something to someone, you go, first of all, is this true? Is it kind? Or I'm just saying it so I can hurt that person, just slice and dice you. I'm just telling the truth. Is it useful? Is it really necessary? And the last one, is it uplifting, edifying, or helping someone? If you think, oh, it's true, it's kind, it's going to help someone, let's do it. I'll open my mouth. You know what you're doing there? You're using that gap of the soul, the spiritual self, having right viewpoint, and telling the mouth, well, did I say this? Okay, right action. Most of you know this already. Avoid physical injury unless appropriate. You have to protect yourself if needed. Okay? There's also called sin of inaction. You know, some people take this to the extreme, like, oh, no injury. You know, it's just like, if you read the Old Testament, if you read the Ten Commandments, most people say, thou shalt not kill. No, that's not what he said. If you go back to the Hebrew, it says, thou shalt not murder. Huge difference. If somebody's going to hurt your family, and in the process of protecting, you're not trying to kill the person, but that happened, it's for protection. But if you enjoy it, you meditate, thought about it, that's murder. Does that make sense? So think about it. Be courteous, be kind, practice service and charity, balance kindness with severity. I know I'm going through this quickly. This is just the overall picture of right action. Right action. Now, Lord Krishna said, a good person is not completely good, a bad person is not completely bad. Now you go, what the heck has it got to do with right action? One of the wrong actions is to hold on to resentment. That's why my teacher said, forgiveness is the key to happiness. By the way, I'm going to go over 7:30, okay? Because I want to make sure I cover all of this. And I apologize we go a little extra time, but we're going to start a meditation at 8, which is 35 minutes from now. You'll have plenty of time to go pee and everything else. Okay. This forgiveness thing, and I think this is one of the deepest lessons, in my opinion, that a soul will learn, is the difference between inner forgiveness and outer forgiveness. Inner forgiveness means we as the soul, the spiritual self in the earthly journey, are learning lessons along the way. In fact, my teacher said, you don't want to make mistakes? Don't bother evolving. Evolution involves time, a certain process, and a bunch of screw-ups. So the question is, when you mess up, do you want to be forgiven? All of us do. So do you have a spiritual VIP pass that says, okay, you mess up, you want to be forgiven? That guy that hurt you, nope, doesn't count. You're screwed, man. Forget it. No. So spiritual forgiveness or inner forgiveness means it's for all. Regardless of the offense, spiritually, I forgive you. Doesn't mean you have to sit there and take it, right? You just say, I forgive you, so you can sleep at night. Now, externally, I might have to call the cops. I might have a restraining order. I have to set boundaries. So the key here is differentiating the two. If you can differentiate the two, you can spiritually evolve and still maintain order in your life. When I heard that, I go, is he serious? How come this is not being taught to the world? Where people say, yeah, I did this to me, I did this to you, I have to do this to you. An eye for an eye. That's dumb. You make both people blind. Right? Now, to finish off right action, there's this story of this Zen master, and he and his disciple are crossing the river, and there's this woman in a kimono, really nice and everything, can't get through for whatever reason, don't want to get her clothes wet. So the teacher said, come on, hop on my back, cross to the other side. So the young disciple went over there too. Done. He let the lady down, the lady went on her way, and maybe a couple hours later, the disciple looked at the teacher and said, we're not supposed to touch women. You're not supposed to carry her. Blah, 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 blah. That's my version. Right? You're not supposed to carry that woman. The old monk said, I dropped her a long, long time ago. You're still carrying her. What's the lesson? Learn to forgive. Learn to let go. Move on. Let little things pass. Well, that person didn't smile at me today. Whatever. Okay, maybe whatever reason, you move on. That person said something nasty to you, you go, well, I can sit there and hold on to this grudge, but I'll just make a note of it, and maybe he's just going some stuff. Whatever. Move on. Remember, the amount of suffering and the dosage and the timing of how long it lasts is dependent on what? How well you use that gap. You just say, anyway, let this matter pass. That's a good mantra to have, by the way. That allows you to sleep at night, to have inner peace. And you can be on vacation without being on vacation. When you go on vacation, like, not a care. So you can still go through life. Just don't keep carrying all this people's crap. Just say, whatever. Anyway, forgive you, let go. I don't want to see you again. No, kidding. I always say my favorite mantra. When these things happen, whatever. Move on. So you can sleep at night. I think some of you needed to hear that, right? When I heard that, by the way, my teacher never said that mantra. I made that up, but it works. Okay, let me finish this. Right lifestyle and livelihood. Just quickly. Repeated thoughts, words, and actions manifest as habits. Repeated habits manifest as virtues or vices. Repeated virtues or vices shows up as lifestyle. Make sense? So, just a quick graph for you. Right lifestyle, if the spiritual self, the soul, you remember that thing there, greater than, less than? You guys remember that in geometry? When the soul has a greater influence over your life than what your body wants, your emotions or your thoughts. The body wants sleep, wants money, wants pleasure, wants sex, wants this, material things the body wants. The emotional body, the emotion wants drama. That's why if you want a good movie, what do? Bestseller. Now, if it's happy from start to finish, boring. When it's sad to end, boring. You need to what? Conflict. Conflict is, you notice there's some people in our life, when there's no fight, no arguments, like, oh, man, I couldn't stand this. Life is not exciting. You go, finally, peace. Because they're driven. In other words, they look at the world through the lens of emotions. Emotions are not bad. You just have to understand there's no such thing as a calm emotion. That's an oxymoron, a contradiction in terms. An emotion is constantly emotion. How about your thoughts? They're constantly jumping from one thought to the other, to one subject to the other. That's why you have the words monkey mind. So if the soul is boss, then you can control the body, the emotions, and thoughts. That's right lifestyle. If it's the other way around, when the body, emotions, and thoughts are in control, and the soul is taking a back seat, good luck. So we always use this image here. Hopefully that helps you understand it. Imagine the soul is the charioteer. You have 3 horses. One is the mental body or your thoughts. One is the emotional body or what they call the astral body. One is the physical body. It's all being controlled by reins, which is that spiritual light that comes down your crown. So at any given time, who's controlling your life? One horse wants to go that way, one horse wants to go that way, one wants to go that way. The general public, if they're not serious about their spiritual path, they let the horse do whatever they want. And they wonder how come their life is a chaos. It's a chaotic life. So the key is to train them, say, the spiritual connection is the spiritual self, control the body, the emotions, thought. I want to go that way. Nope, not that way, this way. And you notice there's the whip. So if the soul cannot control the emotions, the body, and the thoughts, it's the karmic lessons from the past that whip our ass. That's what happens. You go, oh man. In other words, regardless, we're going to learn the lesson. It's just a matter of the nice and easy way or the painful way. That's why I remember many years ago, my teacher said, there's 2 ways to learn lessons. Through your teachers, or through life. Guess who's kinder? You're learning from your teachers who have learned it from their teachers or learn it through mistakes, and they're just simply giving you, do this. But you see, in India, they say something like this. They go, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot force it to drink. Some of us prefer the sledgehammer technique, learn through pain or karmic lessons. Some of us, okay. I'm smart enough to know my teacher is telling me what works, so I'll just follow the spiritual GPS. Which one do you want to do? That is what you call right lifestyle. So right lifestyle is actually manifestation of soul connection and control. All right, number 6. I just need another 10 minutes, and I'm going all over time, but I hope this gives you the big picture. Right exertion and spiritual effort, that is connected to the virtue of constancy of aim and effort. You want to be successful in anything, whether you like it or not, you have to focus. A 100-watt light bulb can illuminate the room by its ambient lighting. But if you want to cut through steel, you have to take all that energy and focus it like a laser beam. If you want to be successful in anything, health, relationships, right? Spiritual development, your finances, you cannot be doing 20 things at the same time. You say, okay, from now till how many weeks or months from, I'm going to focus on this and focus on this. You know, there's this book called The One Thing by Gary Keller and I think Jay Papasan is the name. You guys should get it. And I remember one thing in the book says, success is sequential. You do one thing right, then move to the next thing and do it right. At some point, you get ahead. You try to do too many things at the same time, carrying too many eggs in too many baskets, you know, because people tell you, don't put your eggs in one basket. At some point, you cannot hold baskets, they all break. Sounds familiar? Focus. Right exertion. However, right effort has to be guided by intelligence, not mindless, impulsive charging, and you keep hitting a wall. You know, it's like your head hitting a rock. You hit it enough times, guess what? The rock ain't breaking, your head breaks first. It's just like throwing an egg on a rock. So it has to be guided by intelligence, and along the way, in getting to your objective, the heart has to be involved. Otherwise, we get to our success, but people get hurt. And the negative karma catches up, and we're screwed. Clear? So right effort, right focus, guided by what? Tempered by a loving heart. Hey, we're moving along. Right awareness. Come on, 2 more to go. Stay with me. Somebody thinking, hey, you speak like you're speaking Chinese. Well, your brain is interpreting it into English. All right. Right awareness and wakefulness. Consciousness is awareness or wakefulness. In other words, right now, I'm being aware of the air. I'm being aware of the silence. I'm being aware that what's coming out of my mouth, right? They call it mindful. So what happens is this mindfulness has to be interpreted properly. Awareness of mindfulness for most people is what's coming in from their body, their emotions, and thoughts. Think about it. How your body feels today, your body is aching. Oh man, you're just aware of it. Oh, today you're happy emotionally. Oh, great, everything's great. In other words, oftentimes people identify who the I really is based on the data coming from the body, the emotions, and the thoughts. So, in other words, they're just reacting to the sensors of the body, the emotions, and thoughts. So these are basically symptoms of being spiritually asleep. Spiritually asleep. Now, through right awareness, that's why number 7 is proper awareness, one can wake up to one's spiritual nature. And so when you do meditation, just to kind of put things in context, you notice when you're meditating, what do? You try to make the room quiet. You make sure that your body's comfortable. You don't have cold air blowing on you. That it's as comfortable as possible. So why? So you don't have to think about it. You don't have to get anything from it. It's just like, don't bother me. Emotionally, what are you trying to do? Okay. You guys don't stir me up. I'm trying to meditate. In other words, you're trying to calm the emotions and quiet the mind. Why? Because you're trying to isolate. If you don't have the emotions, the body, and the thoughts going on, who is the I? So, to finish it off, it's something like this. When you do your spiritual practice and meditation, it's an opportunity for you, for even a few minutes, to know what or who is not I. Because if I'm moving my body, I'm observing it, I'm moving it, so therefore I could not be that body. I'm observing my emotions, so I could not be these emotions. I'm observing this, so I'm not to be a thought. So who is this I? That is your center. That's the I. Once you know who the I is, I'm the initiator of the movement, creator of feelings and thoughts. When I know my position, I'm the center of this universe, I can add two letters. M. So I am. From there, basically, I remove the influence of the body, the emotions, and the thoughts, like removing my tools and instruments. So I know who I am. Okay, now I pick it up so I know how to use the body, the emotions, and the thoughts. Now I'm awake to who I am. That's why the Buddha said, when people are trying to worship him, I'm not God. I'm simply awake. Are you awake or are you asleep? Some people go, yeah, you're so boring, I'm asleep. Okay, that's a different type of sleep. So when a person is spiritually awake, they're aware of the true nature, a spiritual being that gets to choose how they act, how they feel, and how they think. That's called self-mastery. And just to finish it off, part of right awareness is also right memory. Again, we don't have time to go through all of it, but just remember this. If you want to be happy, here's another secret. Forgive and forget the mistakes of others as quickly as you can. Of course, you set boundaries. That goes without saying. But remember any kindness anybody's ever done to us. Be grateful and remember it forever. You do that over and over again. You sleep at night. You be happy. Even though things are exploding around you, you be happy. And there's this story of a Hindu king. And the story goes like, People have insulted him, angry with him, emotionally, mentally hurt him, thousands of them. By the time his head hits the pillow, all those are forgotten. But if one person was kind to him that day, that's the last thing on his mind before his body falls asleep. That's right way of using your memory. And the last part, right oneness. Right oneness means if you're not the body, not the emotion, not the thoughts, you are a being of light. You're pure energy. Your spiritual energy having consciousness and intelligence to move the body, the emotions, and the thoughts. Now, this energy is not the same energy as Mr. Einstein said, E is equal to mc squared. There's no m, no mass. So the closest thing to that is light. So you are a being of spiritual light. And if you have that realization you're a being of light, that knowing that, oh, I'm a being of light moving my body, my thoughts, and my emotions, that realization is called enlightenment, or commonly used term illumination. So when people say illuminate, it's like, oh, I got an idea. No, real illumination is a realization that I'm this spiritual being of light, devoid of physical mass, of pure energy. That's why you have peace, love, and stillness. Now, how's that connected to oneness? If you're a being of light, we're in a big room with 100 people. If you strip away the human suit, okay? All you see is light and more light. Basically, you're an ocean of light. That's what you call oneness. So right oneness starts with knowing who you are, a being of light, and connecting with the universe. And the Chinese call it Kong. In India, you call it Shunyata or Sunya, nothingness. You see a monk meditating. Hey, what are you doing? I'm meditating nothing. So you're not doing anything. No, I'm meditating. On what? Nothing. So you keep thinking nothing as no physical thing. You're only half right. So what it is, to experience your true nature as nothing, devoid of matter, just pure energy, is to experience the nothingness that permeates the entire universe. That's what you call oneness. That's why meditation, especially tonight, at some point you go, this is weird. I feel like I'm floating in outer space. And some of you, where your inner eye is more open, how come it looks like everything's light? And some of you will see lights flashing. And you open your, nothing's flashing. You learn this more in the higher teachings. Essentially, each of your chakras have a certain veil. So when you're in deep meditation, this veil either gets thinner or it temporarily opens and closes, and you see a flash of spiritual light. Okay? Whew. So we finished the Four Noble Truths, Eightfold Path in an hour and not too bad, 9 minutes.